pay the loan down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do if it was mine. If I had extra money, I'd pay the loan down.
And would you advocate for that at city council meetings?
I would,
Or
yes.
what? I mean, sometimes I hear that kind of thing from an individual, but when they get to the city council meeting, nothing.
I don't have a problem speaking out. I don't want to be rude or disrespectful, but I don't mind voicing my opinion at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need, like I said, I'm conservative financially.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that we need to be that way. I'm not saying that we can't spend money on things, because there are things that need money to spend on. But they need to benefit the most citizens, not just a few.
And it sounds to me like you think that everything should be thought out very well.
Yes.
And discussed.
Me and my wife had bought into a resort up in Michigan. That was kind of our plan for retirement before our grandbaby came along.
Sure.
And so Michigan's the opposite direction of where my daughter lives, so we sold that place. But I was very involved in the going to the meetings and different things. And one of the things that was aggravating to the folks up there, and that's only 2,200 sites, so you've got a husband and a wife members. And the board would come up with this idea, and they would vote on it, and then it would go through, and no one had any opportunity to put into it. So they got a board president that said, from now on, the idea is going to be brought up this month. We're not voting on it until next month, so that everyone has time to get with those on the board and say, here's what I feel, so that you've got time. Now, in a month, if you haven't made an effort, then you've had your opportunity. And I feel like a city should be the same way. If you're going to bring up something that you want to vote on, that's fine, bring it up, but we're not voting on it we're not fast tracking it, we're not setting aside the rules, we're not doing any of that. We're going to bring it up and let the citizens know about it, which they do. You guys do a great job of publishing that in the paper when it comes up at the meetings.
I try.
And let the citizens get a hold of their representatives. They were elected to represent those citizens, not represent what the mayor wants to do and just be a yes stamp every time the mayor says they want to do something. It feels like this council just says yes and goes on with it, and does not stand up for the citizens that they represent.
So that kind of makes me remember something I wanted to ask about. How should all city council members behave in meetings? No, I don't mean anybody does anything wrong per se.
No, I know. I've been to some meetings where there's been some screaming and yelling, and
Well, yeah.
there's no call for that.
But the taxpayers pay for laptops for each council member.
I remember when that was put in, yeah.
And they've gotten new laptops just like last year. Yeah. And as a city council member, what would you bring to each meeting? And I'm not saying you got to bring your laptop, but what would you bring?
Well, I'd bring a notepad for one thing to write down notes. I would bring any notes I had. I know there used to be a packet that's sent out. I think that's
There
sent
is.
out. I think is there still a paper packet, or is it all on the computer now?
Well, it gets sent out electronically, and then I get one as the newspaper, and I print off what I think I'm going to want for the meeting. You can print everything off if you want to.
Right.
Mayor Whirling is really good about that. In that, I feel like I get a lot of information from those packets. But you haven't seen the videos, and so you don't quite understand what I'm saying. But you would bring notes, right? And things like that. What would you think of a council member who did not?
I wouldn't think they'd be doing their job. If you don't bring anything, how can you keep track of what you're doing, especially meeting once a month? There's a lot of information given out in a short amount of time, and you're being asked to vote on something that you should have already went over. And if there's any questions, you should have wrote down notes about what questions do I have about things. I know that things have to be worded in a legal way, and sometimes that can get a little bit confusing.
Can't understand sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with asking questions. You can ask all kinds of questions, but
Do you think those questions should come in a meeting or prior to a meeting?
well, it depends on if they're You shouldn't be having meetings outside of meetings. Meetings should be for the public to be there. If you're having a meeting outside the meeting, then the public's not privy to that, and you're working for the public. So if the council meeting lasts 2 hours long, it lasts 2 hours long, but you should be able to ask questions. That is what that meeting is for, is to ask questions.
So I think I'm hearing you say maybe that you would come with questions to council meetings.
Probably would, depending on what we're
Yeah.
gonna vote on for
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some things, you know, it's obvious that we need to repair something. That's no big deal.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna spend some money, then why are we spending money? Who benefits from spending that money? Do we help the most citizens? Are we accountable? Is this a special project? I mean, there's different questions like that, and you can behave yourself and you can talk respectfully and still get your point across
sure.
without doing that.
Sure.
Well, my dad was a preacher before me, and so I've been to men's business meetings at churches where I've watched brethren come to blows on brethren over something silly, and in all the places of church, and it never has been in Indiana, so I'll say that right up front. Never has been in Indiana, but in all the places you ought to be able to go to church, you should be able to freely express your opinion without worrying about whatever. But there is a respectful, courteous way to do that without, I mean, you may upset someone with your comments, but if you're respectful and don't raise your voice and don't lose your temper, and everybody has an idea, everybody has an opinion. One opinion is not wrong and the other one's not right if they're all opinions. I mean, there's facts that, you know, but we all have a right to have ourselves heard. Every citizen has that right to be able to speak at a meeting. If they don't agree with something, then if you get enough people that are not agreeing with something, then that ought to make a council want to pause and stop and let's look at this a little more. There's nothing that's, I mean, like I said, other than an emergency situation, that ain't gonna hurt to wait another month or two to look into something. And then if something would come up like that as a council member, I would do some due diligence before the next meeting and try to find out what's going on, what can I do to help, or is this a valid project that we even ought to be looking at, and look into those things.
And would you talk to your constituents about that?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not really a door-to-door person, and there's not a lot of people that would appreciate people coming door-to-door. The Jehovah's Witnesses come to door-to-door all the time, and I just talked with some of them, and I was surprised because for a lot of years I was blackballed by them because I said they wanted to come and talk to me, and I said, I will sit down and talk with you as long as you want about the Bible, but however much time you use, I get to use to present what I believe. Well, we're not interested in that.
Yeah.
So for a long time they walked past me. So, but I'm not really a door-to-door person. People are.
But you do email.
Yes, I do email. Yep, email,
that's how
texting.
I contacted you. Yeah.
Email, texting, all that. Yeah, I'm very open, and I don't have a problem getting a hold of, or contacting anyone, or having them get a hold of me. I would work for the citizens. That's who I'd work for. Try to make Delphi better.
Okay, I want to thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Did you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay. We've been here almost an hour.
Wow.
Yakking. Yeah.
I didn't figure it would last that long.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Didn't I tell you in the email?
You did, but I didn't think I'd have that much to say.
Well, apparently you did.
Yeah.
That's why we ask questions.
That's good.
Thank you very
That's
much.
good. You're welcome.